We're also delighted tonight because we are going to be welcoming Jack Holmes from UPS. UPS is going to help sponsor this, and so Jack is the president of UPS Freight. We have some other individuals. Tom Jensen has also joined us from UPS. We have some others in the room, but there's a lot of things that are going on in the LTL industry. Not just in the LTL, I could argue in the truckload industry, but it's kind of fortuitous. Jack, we're honored that you're here. What I've asked ahead of Secretary LaHood is if you could come up and share your thoughts about what's going on in the LTL industry and some of the concerns that people may have. Obviously, if you want to touch on the UPS activity, for those of you who are not familiar, which would be like absolutely no one in this room, everyone's familiar with that. But UPS just bought Coyote Logistics and my buddy Jeff Silver, and so that's a big deal. Command got bought by Echo, Coyote by UPS, and then you saw the deal with Conway and XPO. There's a lot of things happening. So Jack is the president of UPS Freight. I could give you a long introduction, but that would just take away from your time. So if you could share your thoughts, and then I'll come back to that.
And just for the group, a couple things I wanted to put out there. First, I want to thank Gail, and we really think a lot of NASDAQ, and Mike. A lot of it has to do with the advocacy. I think that's going on with NASDAQ. It's needed. It's necessary. This isn't just one person's issue, especially when you talk about infrastructure. It's everybody's, and you get that, and that's important to us. So thank you for that. Thank you, Secretary LaHood, because Secretary LaHood appointed me to the National Freight Advisory Council a few years ago, of which I still serve at the pleasure of Secretary Fox. And that has been a group that is about as diverse a group as you could ever have together to try to deal with transportation issues. So the bad thing is that's diverse. There's a lot of difficulties in trying to come to agreement issues. The good thing is, with the environment in Washington, D.C., when we as a group and a committee can come together and agree on things, every constituency is represented in that group, so it sails through, and that's been a real plus for us. But so with that, I know Mike wanted me to address a couple things, and I'll open it up to any questions that anybody might have out there. But I guess the first thing I know that came up was Coyote, white Coyote for UPS. And it's a simple answer, and it's funny that the answer melds together so well with why we're here tonight in regards to infrastructure. First, just get it on the table. UPS is very, very important for us that we move our customers' goods, especially during the months of November and December. And customers rely on that, and it's not a problem that people are going out there and selling, just in time. Order it on the 23rd, we'll get it to you on the 24th because we created that market because we've done it. So in that regard, that's something that certainly we want to be able to back up. Coyote, we think, are the best in that space of moving goods around from point A to point B, and again, that's something that we certainly need some help with as we go into this peak season. So they're going to do us a lot of good there and do it in a fiscally responsible manner. The one that really melts best with our conversation, though, is if any of you were on, that's okay, it's like theme music.
Black Box fan.
If any of you came in and went on, 55, 294, any of the highways, you looked around and you saw the tractor trailers going by. The one thing I want you to think about is, if you saw 50 tractor trailers going by, and I know you saw a lot more than that, I want you to understand that 10 of those, on average, are actually empty. So if you think about it, 1 out of every 5, and that's conservative, 1 out of every 5 trailers is empty moving our highways. And then you think about the issue of congestion in regards to how we have to put money into our roads and our highways. You think about just the angst in going from point A to point B in a lot of places in this country. Think about what it would look like if you could take those trailers off the highway. And so we've been looking at that. And the best way that we sort of do it, we knew, was a technology solution for the team of people that are the best in the industry, and that's Coyote. So we found $1.8 billion just kind of hanging around. And said, let's put that to work, and we bought Coyote. And Jeff Silver, as Mike talked about, and his team, Bobby Briggs from UPS, helping coordinate this. They are putting this together now that all of those UPS empties that are moving throughout our system have the opportunity to get filled up with freight. And so somewhere along the way, you're going to have trailers coming off the highways. When trailers come off the highways, tractors come off the highways. When tractors come off the highways, you reduce your carbon footprint. The driver shortage is not as much of an issue because you don't need someone behind the seat of the tractor. Congestion is not so much of an issue. So Coyote for us is a responsible way, instead of sitting on the sidelines and pointing at the legislative group in Washington, D.C. or in our states and asking them to go help fix our problems. It's a responsible way for us to get out in front and help fix our own problems. And so we're very proud of the acquisition. I will tell you that, you know, you always, when you come into a new acquisition, you're skeptical about what are they going to really bring to the table, what you hope. And they're going to outperform everything we looked at. So we are really, really excited about this partnership with Coyote. And you know, culturally, anybody who knows we're the asset side, you know, we're kind of set in our ways. 1907 is when we started. Been doing things the same way, week in and week out. And Coyote is dynamic. The workforce is different. It looks so much different. When I went in there a few weeks ago with Jeff, the first time I walked in, I grabbed my sport coat off the chair, and we used to be suit and tie every day, so for us, sport coats are really progressive. And he said, hey, you're going to scare the hell out of everybody if you have a sport coat walking around. So that's a new and refreshing atmosphere for us that we're going to learn from as we move forward. So it's been a great acquisition for us. And I know there was a question about XPO, and you know, XPO, if you don't know, is a company that Brad Jacobs started. Brad has a great pedigree. He's a very smart guy who is building a very formidable company. And so it's piecemeal, where he was starting out with drayage companies, and he was doing expedited companies, and now his last two acquisitions are big. He bought a European logistics company that brings him into the big time, and it gets him access into ports and imports and exports. And then he just bought Conway. And Conway is a company that is a formidable company in the LTL space. I think Conway, if you would have looked back 10 years ago, Conway you would have said was the best company in that space. I think Jerry Detter at the time was running the company. They've lost a little of their luster. I think, frankly, Old Dominion has done a great job of getting into Conway's business. And Old Dominion is probably the company people would look at right now as the one that has had the best plan for the last few years. But having said that, you know, just as Jeff and Coyote are so excited to have assets that they can sell into with UPS, I know Brad is looking at that, saying this is an opportunity where he can add assets to the fleet. And that's the old CFI truckload group along with Conway itself. And then the other part is Menlo. And Menlo's been involved with a lot of the government contracts in regards to logistics and Department of Defense. And they've done very, very well with that. So I know, you know, with Brad, I think the question that everybody has is, you've got all of these parts, disparate parts. How do you make them all work together? And, you know, it's one thing to say on paper, here's the plan, and it makes sense on paper. I can tell you from personal experience, it's very difficult to get those groups to work together as one. And they've got the challenge of the life coming up. And, but I don't want to count them out. They're bright people and committed people. I'm sure they're going to give it their best, but that story's yet to be told. Questions? Anybody?
So if you bear with me, there's a serious question here.
Good.
Right. This is very broadly admired. And one of the things we talked about at our table, and Mike talked about, is the difficulty in getting shippers to applicate. I work for USG, so this is my opinion, not the company's. But one of the challenges is UPS makes transportation and supply chain look easy to the outside world. And while we know it's not easy, and there's value for you as an organization, that I see that as one of the impediments. In our role, when we try to sell the difficulty of overcoming infrastructure obstacles and capacity, someone not in the industry will use the UPS example of what you do so very, very well as evidence that it can't be that hard. And so, my question is around how do we work together to really reinforce that what you guys do so well is really hard, and it's even harder for those that don't have the scale or who want to be as successful as UPS.
Yeah. First thing I'm going to do is go back to my marketing department and give them a good pat on the back. But, it's funny in our business. It's if you go back to 2006, transportation expense, logistics expense wasn't really a boardroom discussion. It just didn't get talked about. It was kind of something that showed up and you managed it the best you can. And then the fuel crisis hit, and suddenly the board wants to know what's going on with fuel. And then the transportation issues where we had so much capacity and limited freight, and it became a real opportunity, and that's how a lot of third parties really got their feet into the ground. But I think for a company, certainly we can come in and help with that, but I think with a company that's going out there that's trying to let their organization know the complications there, I think it's so timely, because with what happening with fuel right now, if people don't have visibility, they may be fooled into not understanding what the real issues are. So as an industry, I will tell you that we talked 2 years ago, and there were 3 companies, ourselves, Old Dominion, and a smaller company, were the only companies that were more profitable 2 years ago than we were in 2007. Every other company in the industry was less profitable than we were. So you have to understand that as an industry, we're trying to get healthy again. And some of us that are healthy are trying to get healthier, and some of us that are still sick are trying to just get on the better side of the ledger. And so I think there has to be a longer-term view to talk about what transportation was like compared to what it is right now, to understand what's happening going forward. Because I think a typical transportation company would tell you that we're still well behind the curve for where we should be.